And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
You know, business cards are being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Don Gosher.
how well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at PreneurMarketing.com.
Hello everybody, Pete Williams here with my usual partner in crime and co-host Dom Goucher. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Hello there. Hello, everyone.
Absolutely. Hope everyone's had a fantastic week since our last episode. Got a bit more clarity and got some clear direction on where they're heading, which was obviously what we spoke about last week on the show.
Yeah, got some great feedback about that, by the way, from some people I've spoken to that had listened to the show. Really resonated with them, as we thought it would, because, you know, you picked that out of those consulting sessions that you've been doing.
And in
so that was
fact,
a great thing.
it kind of, I guess, resonated with a lot of people because yesterday was the biggest download day of the podcast in about 3 or 4 months, which is super exciting in itself.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as they say, what you measure gets managed, so that's excellent. I'm glad to see that. Thank you, everyone, for being a listener and downloading the show. Before we get into this week's topic, which is an interview that Pete did recently. It's absolutely. I'm gonna oversell this, but it's one of my favourite interviews you've done in a long time, Pete. It's with a guy called Jon Acuff, who we've mentioned quite a few times. He's the author of the book Start, Punch Fear in the Face, Escape Average, and Do Work That Matters, which I love that title.
Very cool subtitle.
But the interview is fantastic. We're going to get into that in a minute. But as usual, just have a little bit rundown of what's been going on in our worlds this week. Pete, what have you been working on this week?
A few different things, actually. Continuing on with the SEO focus on Infinity and the projects there, and actually speaking to Davey J, who we've mentioned a number of times on the show here, who's actually going to be a guest on a podcast in a couple of episodes' time. But he was sharing with me a very, very savvy little backlinking strategy that he was employing in his own business and for a few of his clients. So I've done 2 things with that little tidbit of information. One, started to replicate it in a slightly different way in our business to generate backlinks for the telco, because, you know, it's not a thing people socially talk about or share and, you know, voluntarily write blog posts about. You know, phone systems aren't that sexy. So we're kind of doing what he's done. But also, we've been focusing on really ramping up the blog for this year. I've got some pretty big goals in terms of unique views for the PreneurMarketing.com site. Now, if people have been listening to the show for a while, they probably know that the blog itself was kind of a bit neglected in terms of it just is the place where we have all our episodes of the shows and the show notes and things like that, and that gets a lot of traffic, but there's not a lot of regular contributions and publishing on the site. So working out a really good way to get some team members involved to sort of add to our staff of writers and contributors and really ramp up the blog with sort of 2 or 3 posts a week of amazing content. And one of the series that I'm going to be doing, for want of a better term, is a lot of case studies of really cool marketing tactics implemented, how they were done, and obviously how you can swipe and deploy them yourself. So first one of these series, which will be out in a couple of days' time, is actually going to be Davey J's little savvy backlinking strategy and really break down exactly what he did, the results he got, and then obviously how everyone can do it themselves in a swipe and deploy manner. So that's going to be one of the very first posts in this new series. So make sure you start checking out PreneurMarketing.com on a regular basis, because there's going to be some really in-depth, evidence-based, data-driven marketing advice and tactical sort of stuff on the blog on a very regular basis from myself, the team, and some guest posters as well. So if you want to write for the blog, or you have a really cool marketing tactic you've employed that you want to share and let other people know about, reach out to us, support at PreneurMarketing.com, and we'll get you in touch with one of our team, and we'll write up your amazing tactic as a case study. Maybe you've implemented a 7 lever and got a really good result and want to share what you've done. So that could be a perfect example for the case study section on the blog.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely, folks. We love to hear from our audience, as you know, and this is a great opportunity to be featured on the Preneur Marketing blog. So do drop us a line with that stuff.
It's very exciting.
Last week also, we talked about you having some slots in your consulting calendar, Pete.
Yes.
How's that been going?
It's been good. Had some great conversations. One person actually booked 2 hours of my time yesterday, so a double session. Then that going for about 2.5 hours, and it was really cool to break down his business. And he had a couple of his team members on the call as well, and we really kind of broke up and looked at where his friction points were from a marketing perspective and from a systems implementation perspective. So that was really cool, and had some really good calls. And I'm really enjoying this sort of stuff. It's very invigorating for me, talking to different people and really seeing how we can make big shifts in their businesses. So if anyone is interested in a bit more information about those strategy sessions, I am going to start doing a couple a week, making time in my diary to sort of allow for 2 1-hour sessions a week. So if you're interested, either jump back to last week's episode and understand a bit more about them, or just email support@preneurmarketing.com, and our team will give you a whole bunch of information about how these strategy sessions work. And we really dig deep in your business and giving you a framework and a foundation and a plan for at least the next 2 months or 3 months in your business to sort of go about implementing those 7 levers. So yeah, those calls have been fantastic. Now, Dom, you've been spending some time in London this week.
Yeah, actually, I've been all over the UK this week, just really ramping up the consulting that I'm doing. It's more face-to-face stuff than what you do, Pete. You take those calls over Skype or wherever you are in the world. But I'm doing a lot of face-to-face work with clients, and this week it's been all over the UK, not just in London. So I'm a little bit here, there, and everywhere. And the other thing, we're looking at a new venture. This is something actually I kind of took from you. We're real world business people, and you have a number of businesses. Now, I've always kind of focused on my one primary and core business, and somebody brought this opportunity to me as part of the consulting, actually, where it's a business, and I can absolutely tell you, I have no knowledge of this whatsoever. I have nothing to do with it at all. But it's an interesting business opportunity where they've asked me to help them partner with them on the marketing and promotion of a product. So it's one of those things, we always say that, you always say certainly that knowing exactly how to do the thing or knowing a lot about the product, A, isn't necessary, and sometimes B can get in the way.
Absolutely.
So I thought I would give it a try. And see how we got on with that. So I'll let you know how that one's going, because that's going to bring a lot of the stuff that we talk about to bear. And it's a good real world experiment, really, just to see how we get on.
I'm intrigued on this one, mate, because you haven't even told me about this. That's
you see, I'm just
intriguing me as well.
You've got to keep it fresh, mate. Got to keep it fresh.
I love it. All right. So books. I haven't been reading or listening to much this week. I've been just sort of in the trenches working and doing a whole bunch of stuff and not really training, kind of having a week off. So no training for me means less audiobooks. But what about you with your travel? Have you been listening to anything at all?
Actually, I have, and that's one of the great things about the travel. If you can use that time to get a lot done. And somebody who actually recommended this book to me, and it also turned up in the interview that folks are about to listen to. People who have anything through the internet may have and marketing on the internet may have heard of a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk. Very famous for Wine Library TV a few years ago, and now he's basically famous for being famous. But he's very knowledgeable in the social media space, which is always a buzzword. And he's released a book recently called Jab, 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 Right Hook. So it's the week for odd book names, and it's. I hesitate to use this term because it sounds a bit fluffy, but it's a blueprint. It really is a blueprint for the right way to use social media. And he's a man after my own heart, because the book is 1/3 of the book is the kind of the background and the theory, but 2/3 of this book, 2/3 of the content of this book, is Gary and his team going through the social media campaigns of international brands on Facebook, on Twitter, on Pinterest, on Instagram. Now, some of the Facebook, I think a lot of people have got a grasp of, but these other platforms, I think a lot of people are a little bit not sure really how to make the most of it from a marketing or business development point of view. So he goes through these campaigns, and it's a great little game actually that I was playing with a friend of mine, which was, okay, I'm going to cover up the summary. We're going to look at the campaign snippet and see what we think, whether they did it right or not.
Awesome.
And then underneath this little write-up about what was good about it, what was bad about it. It was like just huge pile. You know, we in the Platinum we've done spotlights, and certainly in your consulting, you look at people's businesses and you say, oh, you know, maybe look at this, maybe focus on that over here, over there. He's doing this. There must be something like 150 examples in this book.
Impressive, isn't it?
It's just a great way of really getting up to speed on these platforms, especially if you've not got a clue. So I strongly recommend that. It's I read the print version, but Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. Strongly recommend that.
Awesome. And obviously a number of his books are available on our lovely sponsor, audibletrial.com/PreneurCast is where you can support our supporters and get a free audio book download, which could be one of Gary's earlier books or any other books that you hear. And obviously, as I mentioned numerous times on the show, today's guest, Jon's book Start, I think has to be one of the best narrated audio books of all time. So if you haven't been a Audible trial subscriber yet, or Audible trial subscriber yet, I really strongly suggest you check out Jon's book. So audibletrial.com/PreneurCast, where you can sign up for the free trial and download Jon's book for free.
Absolutely. I wholly recommend and support your recommendation there, Pete, with Jon's book. And with that, as I said, I just want to say it again. This really was one of my favourite interviews for a long, long time that you've done with Jon. So I think we should get into it.
Sounds good. Jon, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Should be great. Now, a lot I want to talk to you about today, but I actually don't want to begin with starting. I actually want to go back and start with quitting and talking about quitting and how that actually set you on a bit of a trajectory, because I know that was your, I guess, third book really, but your first sort of big business, career, personal development, whatever term you like to use, book. Is that a fair comment?
Oh, completely. Yeah, the first two were much more about satire. So yeah, it was definitely a departure.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What's the book about for those who haven't read Quitter?
Well, the book is basically about the idea that we're becoming the I'm but generation. When I talk to people and ask them what they do, they say, well, I'm a teacher, but I want to be a musician. Or I'm a stay-at-home mom, but I want to start a business. And so there's this huge gap opening up between who we really wish we were and who we are right now.
Yeah.
And so the book is kind of a look at why do we quit? How do we quit the right way? How do we work on our dreams? How do everything from, if you have a stable job, it's an amazing time to dream because you've got essentially a really big client that allows you to do some stuff on the side. And so it really took a look at that whole idea of, especially in the States, oh, I don't like my job. I haven't liked it for 10 minutes. I'm going to quit. And I quit, I had 8 jobs over the last years, I guess 9 now that my last one has ended. And so I have had that story and changed my life by being deliberate. And so that's what the book's about.
I guess, from the outside looking in, a lot of people will kind of say, well, hang on, if, you've had 8 or 9 jobs or, people are quitting to sort of try and find greener pastures. Do greener pastures actually exist? Are you better off trying to stick around for the gold Rolex, which doesn't happen these days? But finding that balance too of not kind of just jumping from green pasture to actually work hard at something as well. How does that fit into everything?
Yeah, the whole point of the book is don't be an idiot.
Yeah.
I meet you and I meet so many would-be entrepreneurs that say stuff like, hey, I want to open a coffee shop. So we're going to mortgage our house. We're going to sell everything we own. And we're going to go for it. And I'll go, well, could you work part-time at a Starbucks first for like 6 months?
Yeah.
And see if you hate coffee and people? And so, it's very, if anything, the book's about how do you hustle on the side. And by side, I mean, get up half an hour early, grind in different ways. You don't have to go all in. The worst thing that happens is when you go all in without really knowing what you're doing, you lose the ability to say the most powerful word an entrepreneur needs, and that's the word no.
Yeah.
So let's take photographers as an example. Here in the States, everybody wants to be a photographer. And so my friends quit, and they have to say yes to every wedding, every weekend of the year. And by the end of the year, they hate photography, they hate brides, they hate their dream, and they're burned out. And so, yeah, the book is definitely flies in the face of also that idea like there's some perfect job that's going to save you and make you happy 100% of the time.
Doesn't
I mean,
exist.
you get that. Like,
Absolutely.
You have to do a lot of things you don't like so that you earn the right to do the things you love.
So true, so true. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I see that so often. People kind of, they go, I want to be a photographer. It's a great example. And they jump in feet first, which, congratulations for having the courage to do that, because it does take a lot of balls to make that leap. And then, there's some positive stuff in that in its own right. But you're right. If you don't have, some sort of understanding or, some experience with a bit of lead gen and business, that you are having to sort of bend over a little bit and take every job you can get just to pay the mortgage. And then that just burns you out and kills the dream as well. So there is a fine balance you have to master.
Yeah, and I think that, we tend to romanticize the person that just went for it and stepped out, and, oh, they did it, and so that we have like two stories we tell. We kind of celebrate when they leave a job. People throw a party, and you kind of give everybody that didn't leave the middle finger. And it's like, look at the brave person, all you losers that are still going to work here. Yeah. And then we talk about the successful people. We go, and that guy's name was Steve Jobs, and that could happen to you too. Or that guy's name was Jeff Bezos. Or that guy's name was Mark Zuckerberg. And we hold up like the rarest of the rarest of the rare as that's going to be the norm. And then I get to see the entrepreneurs who get divorced, who lose everything, who hate everything. It's just there's smarter ways to do it.
Yeah, and I completely agree. A lot of people I talk to, I sort of say to them, don't try and be Mark Zuckerberg. Like, he is the 1% of the 1%. Don't try and start a business that's going to IPO at $3 billion. Like, the chance of that happening is ridiculous. Start a business that's going to give you $200,000 a year working 4 days a week from 10 till 5, or 10 till 3. Like, that is a reasonable goal that you can achieve if you're smart about it. But trying to shoot for the moon is just silly.
Oh, yeah. So my question to you is, are you a subscriber to, you've got like a bunch of passive income that's coming in right now? Like, you have products?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working hard for 10 years. I've got, a couple of companies now. I get to work 3 days a week. I get to stay home and enjoy my 1-year-old and have that. But this is the thing is, like, I was talking to someone recently that I'm working on a new book, and my first book came out 11 years ago. And it took me 5 years after that book came out to sort of even, be considered an author and be considered, that kind of success, if you want to use it as a bad word. And I'm kind of off tangent here a little bit, but yeah, it takes time. It's not there's no such thing as an overnight success. You've got to work hard at it, and it's possible, but you've got to work your ass off.
Certainly.
Well, I want to ask you this question, because I know you're a big social media guy, which I love, and this is something that I think plays into exactly what you were just talking about in terms of, trying to be the next Zuckerberg and stuff. And, Facebook's getting this bad rap, and I was having this conversation recently that everyone is just showing the best side of themselves on Facebook. So people's view of what the other side of the fence is, the grass is greener analogy, is getting more warped every single day, and it's harder to sort of be content with a small goal or a realistic dream or where you are, because all you're seeing is everyone's highlight reel.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's tremendous opportunity with that. I think, and case in point, today I wrote a blog post about having nightmares when you chase your dream. Yeah. Because like the last 6 months, I've had a ton of nightmares about, because I went through a big job transition, and like people ask me about it, and there's embarrassing parts of that. And so like that part people don't talk about. So the opportunity is that millennials want honesty, and they have a marketing radar better than any generation previously, because they grew up on it. Like, they eat and breathe marketing. Yeah. And so they can tell when you're being fake. So I love when leaders, like old school leaders, only share two types of stories: the ones where they succeed, and the ones where they failed 30 years ago and it doesn't hurt anymore. Like, forget that. I stand out when I go, hey, I had a fight with my wife like yesterday. It wasn't, 5 years ago and now we're perfect. It was yesterday, and here's what it was about. And you share, and when you do that, the way I look at it is when you go first with your story, you give everyone in the room the gift of going second. And that to me is community. That's community.
Good. I like that. That's a powerful thought. I like it. Very cool. Well, let me ask you this. I want to talk about Start quite a bit, because that's, a book that I fell in love with, and we had our award show every year. It's award season right now, and we do our awards on the podcast every year. Best books, best tech, blah, blah, blah. And you were a very close winner. Unfortunately, you were beaten by Arnold Schwarzenegger's Total Recall book, in my opinion, so I do apologise, but your book was second.
So his was good.
I loved his book. It was
really
awesome.
Was it honest?
I think so. I found it. I don't know a whole lot about him, so I can't say how honest it was. I found it really interesting in terms of how much there was to Arnold Schwarzenegger before or beyond being a movie star. Like, things I loved about it, which I didn't know, was he had a huge direct response marketing, like mail business back in the day, and, huge developer of Santa Monica real estate. And he had his hands in a lot of pies and did night school during the movie days so he could get a degree in business. And it was really interesting to sort of see that side of him, of how hard he actually worked and how dedicated he was to everything but acting. So I found that really interesting. I found it really, really interesting. So the reason I was saying that is, your audiobook I loved. It was definitely the audiobook of the year, your articulation and the way you narrated Start, which I want to get into. But you touched on your career path. And I am interested and do want to share your story of going and working with Dave Ramsey, because I find that really intriguing about why you went that direction, how you got that position, because obviously a lot of people know Dave and he's a big, I guess, brand, for want of a better term, in the US particularly. So how did you go about getting that job, quitting, taking that job? What was the role? How did you experience that? And obviously now you're transitioning something new on your own 2 feet, I guess.
Yeah, so it started just like a lot of things start. I had a blog, and one of his employees saw the blog. And Dave, one of the great things Dave does is every Monday there's a full staff meeting. All 360 people for an hour get together. Talk about a way to communicate, core ideas to a team. And then on Wednesday they have another one where it's kind of more like a learning session. So they'll bring in a speaker, an author, a musician, whoever, who will give like a speech or do a performance. And so they invited me to come do that. And cool. So in 2008...
So you sang?
No, I spoke. I'm awesome at singing. And I'm huge in the States. It's weird that you don't know that, because I know you have Taylor Swift there. But so I end up doing that, and then I do it a second time a year later, and then I do it a third time, and Dave says after that time, hey, and he bought a copy of my first book for every staff member, which was super awesome. And so he sits down and says, hey, I really like the way you do what you do. I'm trying to build other brands in my company, and we'd like you to be one of the first ones. And so for Jenny and I, my wife, it was a great opportunity. We moved our whole family up in the summer of 2010. And I felt like I got a PhD in how to be a brand, how to be an entrepreneur, how to hustle. And I think for me, I got to a place where I was telling people to do stuff I wasn't doing. And by that, I meant I felt called to be an entrepreneur, and I was at a 360-person company. So I was daring other people to be risky, and I was pretty safe.
Yeah.
And there's great things about that safety. For 3 years, it was awesome. So, my hope is that I won't denigrate it, because good grief did I benefit. I mean, when people say, you wouldn't hit the New York Times list without Dave Ramsey, I say, amen, no kidding. Like, absolutely. That's why. Yeah. So my hope is that, if Dave ever heard this, he'd go, I appreciate that you're not trying to criticize me, because good stuff happened, and that's the stuff I want to focus on. So in September we got to a place where we felt like it was time for a discussion, and we ended up deciding that this was the time to do it on our own.
So I do find it interesting, and I hope you don't find this question too personal, but I find it interesting that obviously Dave was trying to build up other brands, like not brands in terms of like Coca-Cola, brands in terms of people. And I find that a very interesting dynamic to try and build, because no doubt, not from an ego perspective, but as you build your own personal brand, there is obviously going to be a very strong calling to go out and do your own thing. You weren't ghostwriting for Dave, I don't think, or was there any sort of that stuff, or was it all about you working for Dave, building Jons?
Yeah, no, he does his own thing, and I think I think what you're hitting at is right, in the sense of if you blow up somebody's personal brand and teach them how to do it on their own, I think a natural evolution is to go, okay, well now, like, you gave me amazing flying lessons. I want to go fly now. Yeah. And the other thing about him is that he's an infectious entrepreneur. There are entrepreneurs where even if you're not an entrepreneur, just being around them makes you want to do it and try it. And that's who he is. So for me, that was a natural evolution of, wow, I want to do it on my own, not just be one of the 5 he works with, but be my own and make some decisions that might be different than the decision he'd recommend.
It's exciting, mate. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's fun. We're having a good time with it.
Awesome. Now, just quickly, the blog that you were writing, was that the stuff Christians like? blog?
Yeah, that was the first one. I mean, I first wrote a blog in 2000, 2001, but there was a 7-year gap between the two. And so then I started Stuff Christians Like, and it got really big really quickly, which was fun, and certainly not because I'm cool. I mean, there was a million factors. And so then now I write acuff.me, which is kind of my entrepreneur blog, where it's hustle ideas and challenges and stuff like that.
Which is absolutely worth subscribing to. Put it into your Feedly or your sort of reader tool. But one of the things I'm interested in is what were some of the two or three big things? Because I know a lot of our community here have their own blog and, you know, in various niches and things. I am intrigued. What were some of the big things you can think of that actually made that first blog really get to the size it was and, you know, get on Dave's radar and become, you know, big enough to, you know, have a book deal that was successful in its own right? What sort of stuff can you think about looking back that made that successful? Was it just writing regularly and then just letting people know? Was it guest posting?
I mean, I'm really handsome. Like that.
There's no question about that. That's
Although
cool.
If I had an Australian or British accent, I could charge so much more. Like every time I hear Marcus Buckingham speak, I'm like, that is the accent I need. Good grief. But no, I would say back to the honesty thing. I think it was honest.
Yeah.
I think at the time there weren't a lot of people going, hey, it's weird when we Christians do this. This seems dumb, you know, and I wasn't poking a finger at anybody but me.
Yeah.
So it was honest. It was consistent. You know, you meet the same people I do. They go, oh, I've been working at this so long. And you go, what does that mean? They go, 4 months. And you go, 4 months? Wow, a whole 4 months.
Whoa.
That's like 16 weeks. That's exhausting. And so it's consistent. Like, I wrote 5 or 6 posts a day for the first month because I was like, I'm going to kill it. And then also I think it was the timing. I think that sometimes we do entrepreneurs a disservice where we pretend that timing doesn't matter. It does matter. Like there are times where you're too early for an idea. Tom Peters, for example, wrote one of my favorite books about being a brand. It's called Brand You. And it came out, I read it in probably 1999. And I think it did fine, but it didn't blow up like I think it would blow up now, in that a lot of people get that. If you have a Twitter account, you're a brand. Like if you have a resume, you're a brand. And so I think there's sometimes you're too early, sometimes you're too late, where you're late to market and it's really hard, and sometimes you're just right at the right spot. And for me, the timing was there weren't a lot of people doing it. So I think it'd be incredibly egotistical for me to say, anytime I released it, it would be huge. I think a lot of it did have to do with the idea that, you know what, I released it at a good time when a lot of people hadn't written that same idea.
I think that definitely plays into a lot that people don't take into their sort of bank of what happened. And this is why I guess, you know, entrepreneurship is about continually trying new things, because something's going to stick because you're going to get better, or the timing's going to be right, and possibly and most likely a mixture of the both. Yeah,
and the other myth is that, like, I didn't write Christian satire until that blog. So the way I approached it, people were like, why did you choose that? And I said, because I had 50 hooks in the water, and that's the one that got bitten. And then I leaned into it. So I think that's the other mistake entrepreneurs make, is that they think their idea has to be perfect. I didn't have a perfect concept and then launch it. I launched a bunch of stuff, and lo and behold, this one took off. And so it's, for me, being an entrepreneur is like knowing somebody to get you in the party. Like Stuff Christians Like got me past the bouncer. Now I have to kill it inside. Like once you get past the bouncer, you still can't, like, you can't spill drinks on people or not pay for drinks, or, you know, set off the fire extinguisher. And so it's the same thing with Dave. Like, the relationship with Dave opened so many doors for me. Now, if I am a horrible public speaker, the door gets closed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, what helps with that is that Dave opens it up, and then hopefully I work hard enough to earn the right to do it a second time.
Absolutely. And that's obviously what you're trying to do now on your own 2 feet, which I'm very excited to see what happens. So,
yeah, you and me both.
Let's dig into Start, because this is the thing that I love this year. You know, as I said, you know, one of the best books of the year for me. I really encourage people to, you know, listen to the audio version, because I think the way you narrated it obviously came through because of, you know, being in your words, and then you can obviously articulate it as you see fit. I thought it was fantastic, really engaging. So,
thanks. Let's
talk Start. What's that all about?
Well, Start really came out of a conversation. You've probably heard the same things I've heard, where people say to entrepreneurs, don't just don't come up with a solution, go find a problem to solve. And I think the evolution of that is find a person with a problem to solve. I think the way you stay connected to an audience is that you find somebody and you really try to help that person. So for me, that person was an older woman on a plane. She was probably late 70s, early 80s, and I gave her a copy of Quitter, and she read it on the plane, and she kind of leaned over and said, hey, what do you do when all your excuses for not chasing your dreams are gone? You know, all the fears that held you back, what do you do? And it was really sad because in a way it felt like for the first time she was looking back on her life and realizing life had passed her by. And I think that's what happens. I mean, you and I both have friends that they took us, you know, a job that was supposed to last for 6 months because they got bills to pay, and 4 years later they're still there. And it feels like, or they're in a dating relationship. We both had friends that what should have just been one bad date turned into 4 years together, and they're giving away their only resource that matters, which is time. And so life moves quickly. So I really started to go, okay, how come a guy like Dave Ramsey is successful? How come so-and-so successful? And how come some people aren't? And what I found was that there were some consistencies. And so I really use this metaphor of that there's two roads. There's the road to average, which is easy because all you have to do is nothing. And then there's the road to awesome, which has, 5 different steps. And the steps are, you first go through this time of learning where you've got 50 hooks in the water. You try a bunch of different things. And then the next phase is this time of editing where you go, you know what? Stuff Christians like is working and this other blog is working. I'm not even going to look at these other 50 URLs, that I did. And then you go through this time of mastering where you really kind of lean into what you're doing and hopefully get better at it. And then you go into this time of harvesting where those decisions come home. I mean, I've never met a farmer that said, I planted watermelon, but corn came up. And so harvesting is this time of kind of starting to see returns. And then there's guiding. And guiding is that idea of I'm going to help other people do what I do. And so those are the 5 stages. And so I think the book resonated because it's a pretty simple concept. And you could easily go, where am I right now? I know for me, I would say I'm learning about who I want to be as an entrepreneur. I would say I'm maybe editing how I am as a public speaker because I've done it a couple hundred times and I'm by no means a master, but I am starting to go, you know what? I don't need to do this type of humor, or I do need to focus on this. And so that's what the book's about.
And I think it's a fantastic read. But the one thing I found interesting, talking to people, a lot of, startup entrepreneurs and sort of stuff is they want to jump. They want to jump straight into mastery because they read the sales letter that said, buy this course and you'll make, $100,000 next week, in your underwear on your kitchen table kind of stuff. And they're not willing to go through that apprenticeship, which is probably another term for learning. I would assume you'd happily.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And
yeah.
And I think also because going back to what we were talking about before with this Facebook social media thing where everyone sort of shows their highlights. Someone posts on Facebook once a week of the highlight of the week and don't mention the other 45 hours where they were slogging away doing hard work or like late at no one Facebook saying I'm working hard at 11 o'clock at night. It's like I'm having beers at 2 in the afternoon. So people
Yeah. I was just going to say, entrepreneurs like to show the Instagram photo of it's them at the beach and they say, today, this is my office. And you're like, oh my, this guy's at the beach every day.
Yeah, and this is a hard thing. So, how do people kind of, I don't even know what the question is here, but I guess, what do you say to people who kind of get stuck by that kind of shiny object? I always see the good thing and I want to jump past apprenticeship and get that magic bullet and go straight to mastery.
Well, I think part of it is we don't want to be bad at things. Everything in life is instant. It makes sense that people want instant success because your smartphone trains you 12 hours a day to demand and expect instant. And so that's the challenge. I mean, anything you practice 12 hours a day becomes kind of rooted in you. And so the idea that you have instant access to all information ever trains you to think everything should run at the same speed. So the first thing I'd say is it's about patience. The second thing I'd say is sometimes it's about fear. And we don't want to be bad at things. The hardest part of becoming good at something is being willing to suck at it first.
Yeah.
And so, but you should. And in other parts of our life, we understand that. If you said to me, I've never run before, I'm 25 pounds overweight, but I think I'm going to do a marathon tomorrow, I'd be like, well, you're an idiot. Why would you run 26 miles a day after you ran 0? But if you said to me, hey, I have a goal of running a marathon in 6 months, I'm going to run half a mile tomorrow, and then I'm going to build on it. Yeah. We get that with our bodies. With our dreams, we don't understand that.
There's a big disconnect. Absolutely right.
Sure.
Which is very interesting. So I want to break down these five steps that make up, starting in your book. So learning, what's the big takeaway? What's kind of the goal, if we want to use that term, for the learning phase of starting out?
Well, learning to me is about quantity. Editing is about quality. Like, learning is quantity. I want you to try 100 different things. I want you to, have fun with it. And you've seen this before. You see this sometimes where people think they have to have the perfect thing before they take the first step, and that kills you. I mean, I didn't know Stuff Christians Like would take off. We are the worst judges of what's going to be a good idea. Steve Jobs said that the Segway was going to change the world, that architects would build whole cities around it. And he was Steve Jobs. And so learning for me is about trying a lot of different things in a lot of different ways and being patient and being brave enough to try. Sometimes learning is just giving somebody the permission to dream. A lot of us think that dreaming is just for entrepreneurs or musicians. And we don't think that moms and dads get to do it, And so, to me, that's what learning is. Learning is it's a research stage. It's you ingesting a ton of different fun things and giving yourself the permission to not have it perfect. That's to me what learning is.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely one of the most important things that any entrepreneur or in any phase of life, I guess, really, you need to accept and be willing to do. Like, if you're going to go and become a carpenter or a plumber, you understand you're going to go and get really crappy pay, probably get abused by your boss for 2 to 3 years, stuff up all the time because you're doing an apprenticeship and you're learning. And people accept that when they're going into the world of, a career and a job. But when they want to go out and do something on their own, they're not willing to sort of invest that time, effort, sweat, tears, frustration to go through that on their own 2 feet, which is something that I think people need to give themselves permission for, as you said. Absolutely.
No, yeah, and you're right. But I would say culturally, maybe across the world, I think there's still some countries that do a good job of this. We've lost the value of the apprenticeship. We don't appreciate that. If you've seen, there's a movie, I think it's Jiro Dreams of Sushi. And it's a sushi master.
Awesome.
And I think there's like the first level, you spend years learning how to boil rice correctly. Like, boiling rice is your whole life. And, and he would say, well, hey, I've been doing this 60 years, so if you want to be a master, this is the path.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of our culture, again, goes, I want to do one blog post that goes viral, and then I kind of want to, be on Big Brother Australia edition,
Exactly. They wanted to use the microwave for that rice rather than working hard at it.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine if they want to do that. It makes me just hustle even more.
Yeah. It leaves that room for the rest of us. So
it does.
Once you've gone through that learning phase, now you're editing. This is where you obviously are refining your skills, finding your voice, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and editing really, to me, a lot of people don't really know what they want to do. And here's an example. So I have a friend who said he wants to open a restaurant. And so my wife and I were kind of talking to him about that. And we said, well, what's your favorite part of that? He said, well, I just want to have a room where they get a VIP experience, where like normal people get treated really specially. And we kind of came around and said, well, hey, I don't know that you want to start a restaurant. Like, I don't hear anything about sales. I don't hear anything about food. I hear everything about experience. Like, maybe the right thing for you is to not try to raise capital to do a restaurant, but to find a restaurant in town that you can create this space in. Like, maybe that if that's your passion, maybe doing it with 10 different restaurants would be so awesome for you. But again, so for me, editing is removing all the good stuff to get to this is what I like to do. For me personally, there's a lot of stuff I thought I liked to do, but I'm learning one of the things I really love to do is to help entrepreneurs be a brand. Mm-hmm. And I get a lot of people that go, I want to do what you do, because I meet a lot of people that I always talk about the 3 things it takes to kind of to be a brand are ability, audience, and ideas. And I meet a lot of people that have 2 of them. They've got an audience somehow. They've got some ability to deliver an idea, but their ideas are horrible. They're boring. They're flat. Or I meet people that they got no audience. They don't even understand platform. But, man, their ideas and, man, their ability, if they could just get some eyeballs. And so I know that in my editing phase, I kind of remove that and go, this is the thing I really care about. So a lot of editing is getting down to what matters. And the story I tell in Start is the girl at the Apple customer call center that I said, do you hate your job? Because call centers are hard work. And she said, no, I love it. And that surprised me. And she said, I love it because I learned a while ago that my 2 favorite things to do are figure out problems and help people. And I get to do that every day. So in editing, I want you to try to get closer to that.
Cool. Okay. So once we've gone through that learning phase, we've edited it out, we've kind of found the needle in the haystack that is what, puts us on that path to awesome. And then mastery is the next step. How's that work?
Mastery is about one word, reps. You need to do repetitions. Like it's repetition, 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 repetition. And so for me, the way I like to say it is you are in a season of yes. Like every opportunity is yes until proven no. And by that, I mean you go, yeah, let's try it out. And then maybe down the road you realize this isn't the right thing. But here's something I did the other day. So a website that puts together meetups emailed me and said, hey, do you want to speak at Vanderbilt University? And Vanderbilt's a great school in Nashville, considered kind of Ivy League of the South. And I'd never spoken there. So I said, I'd love to do that. And they said, okay, there'll be 60 people there. So I show up and there's like 5. And it's at the Barnes & Noble Starbucks. Ooh. So like super awkward. There's just a mic in the Starbucks and everybody's quietly drinking coffee. They're not there for me. And I stand up and I'm like, what's the deal with dreaming? And 90% of the crowd leaves, and like mad leaves. They're like looking at me as they pack up their stuff. And I speak for, half an hour, 45 minutes, and I answer as many questions as I can. And there happens to be a professor there that wasn't planning to be there. And she emails me and says, hey, would you ever speak to my class? And I say, I'd love to. And so then I speak to the class and I tweet that I spoke to the class. And one of the coaches on the football team sees I did that and says, would you like to speak to the football team? And they're a nationally ranked football team. Like, they're a great team. And so I go and speak to the team, and the head coach tweets out, Jon Acuff's a beast, which is a huge recommendation for me. He now leaves and goes to Penn State, one of the top 10 American football schools in the history of the game. And so I'll probably end up going up and speaking at Penn State with those guys because awesome. I have a relationship with them. And it all started because I did the rep. So mastery to me is all about going, okay, if I want to be the best at whatever it is I'm trying to be the best at, where am I finding practice space? Where am I finding a place to do repetitions? It's all that kind of stuff.
Very, very cool. And I'm guessing from that, moving on to harvesting, the 4th phase here, that's where the everything comes home to roost in terms of you start getting the ridiculously large paid jobs in speaking, if you use that analogy, and that's where you sort of really start to actually, pull that corn out of the ground.
Yeah, you see some, and people think it's the easy stage. I think it's a hard stage because I've seen more entrepreneurs fail in success than I have in failure. Like, success brings out the worst in people. Like, you want to mess something up, throw some money at it. Yeah. And so to me, harvesting is about, maintaining your ego. I mean, how many times do you see an entrepreneur who gets a little bit of buzz and they just become a jerk?
Yep.
And so it's about ego and character and consistency and, you can see the finish line. Don't stop now. Like when you run a marathon, you don't lay down at the 1 yard line. You cross the finish line. And so I think that's what harvesting is to me, is about still working hard on all those things.
Yeah, very cool. And then obviously at the end, the final phase?
Yeah, the final phase is guiding. And I would argue that the best entrepreneurs, it's never just about them. It's always about helping other people.
Yeah.
And you've interviewed or you've seen people that, when you do something awesome, it's a natural byproduct that you want to help other people do it.
Absolutely.
Like, it starts to bother you when you see other people that are having miserable careers and miserable lives. You think it's possible. Like, I did it. I always say it's like finding a rope swing into a river in the woods that nobody knows about. And you go, hey, this is a really fun thing right around this corner. Like, it might feel hard to get there, but it's awesome. And so to me, that's what's guiding. Guiding is about giving back. I always say that figuring out your dream leads to selflessness, not selfishness.
I like it. Very cool. So on your journey, obviously you mentioned you're obviously in that, what you consider the learning and editing phases in certain things, and obviously you've quit Dave Ramsey and going out on new adventures yourself. Where are you headed? What's your goals? What are you working towards? What sort of reps are you trying to do now?
Well, I mean, for instance, I spoke yesterday for free to a room full of folks looking for for jobs. They're all job folks. And it was so encouraging to me because I got to connect with real people. I got to give them real social media advice. The rep to me is the reason I said yes to Vanderbilt is I want to be a better speaker. So I had lunch an hour ago with the founder of one of the largest speaking bureaus in the country and spent time asking him, okay, hey, I'm 38. Like, these are the pieces I have in play. What do I need to do to get better? What do I need to be careful about? Who's another 38-year-old you saw that, kind of fell off the map because he did these decisions or she did these decisions? So I think for me, and then I just have wise people in my life that are kind enough to answer questions. And so I'm learning that way. And then the other thing is I'm creating new things. I've got a 30 Days of Hustle challenge that I do on the site, and there's a bunch of new fun things that I do to try to grow my social media platform. I kind of got lazy at social media for a little while, and so now I feel like I'm back. I started a Tumblr yesterday. Ooh. So I'm always trying to experiment and, figure things out.
Very cool. So 30 Days of Hustle sounds interesting. Enlighten us.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, I said I'll commit to writing 30 days of unique content if you commit to reading it. And I gave people 48 hours to sign up. We had 6,200 people. I created a private Facebook group. And then I created content, and the content was very specific. It wasn't flowery or like believe in yourself. It was today I want you to do this. Like day 15, I think I dared them to cut their goal in half because I knew the majority of them, their goals are too big. And we're so prideful, like the idea. See, I'd rather you cut your goal in half and crush it and use that momentum to grow the goal the next month than have this huge goal that fails and it kills you and you don't try again. I mean, that's why diets don't work. And so it was very specific. And now today today's the 30th day, and I'm going to start a new wave tomorrow, February 1st, or in 2 days, February 1st, and I'm opening it back up for enrollment. But I asked them to fill out a survey of what they did, and I'm going to have the fun job of adding up all the weight they lost. Like, I guarantee, Pete, they lost 2,000 pounds together.
Awesome.
I guarantee they wrote, 5,000 pages of book. I guarantee some started a business. And so, yeah, for me, it's a way to give back. But here's the thing I like to think about. When you stand up and speak to an audience, the audience learns, but you don't. You deliver. When you sit down and speak to an audience, everybody gets to learn. So for me, something like 30 Days of Hustle is I got to learn too. And so, yeah, those are the kind of things I'm working on right now.
Very cool. What was the biggest takeaway you've had so far from this group that you actually took away?
The biggest takeaway I had, I guess it would get back to I think that I really love START, but I feel like the flaw of START is very simple. And the flaw of START is that it simplifies a really big leap. I've had a lot of people say, I'm not like, I had somebody tell me that you go from average to awesome. He said it needs to be average to kind of better than average, and better than average to I'm doing it okay, and I'm doing okay to I'm doing better. And so like what happened was a lot of people were like, the curve from average to awesome was so steep. So what I'm trying to do now is go, hey, some people need a book before START. Like they need a prequel where I go, like maybe you need to work on some stuff and heal from some stuff and be okay with some stuff before you go, hey, here you go. It's time to go tomorrow. You'll be amazing. Like I don't want to ever be that kind of author. And I don't think I did too much of that in START, but I've had people come up to me and go, I would love to read START, but I feel a million miles away because I spent 10 years at a job where my boss told me I was worthless. Like I'll read you a comment I got today that kind of summarizes for me. And just, it was one of those things where, you know how it is. You can sit in your cubicle, sit in your office, sit at the beach and come up with ideas of how you think you need to help people. And then a real person says something that makes you go,
yep,
that is true. So this is from Michelle. She said, because I wrote about nightmares, because I had one last night and I got up and wrote about it. And she said, let me tell you what is a nightmare. The company I worked for closed their doors with no notice in December. No notice. Shows up at work. doors closed. It was a place where I was sleepwalking my way through life. Now I'm 42 years old and have no job. That is not the nightmare. The nightmare is this has caused me to realize I have no dream. I spent so long being numb that I don't even know what I want to do. So here I sit at a crossroads and don't really have any idea which way to go. Now would be the perfect opportunity for me to do something, but I really don't know what. I would give my left eyeball for a dream. And so if I showed up to Michelle's life and said, here's a book about being awesome, it's too soon. Like she needs a start over book before she needs start. So that's kind of something I've been kind of thinking about lately.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So that might be one of the upcoming books, or at least a series of blog posts?
Yeah. I'll definitely put some ideas toward it.
Nice. So speaking of new books, your wife, who you talk about a lot with a lot of passion, which is very exciting to see. Some people don't even have that sort of passion. She's got her book coming out soon.
Yeah, her book will come out in April. And
very cool.
We're excited about it. We're going to self-publish it because Jenny does not want to sell the book like with a book tour or anything. And so we really feel like if we went to a traditional publisher and said, give us money, and then she didn't sell it, that's very unfair. Mm-hmm. So, and it's a great way to experiment. Like I'm going to get a crash course education in self-publishing here in a minute. So yeah, her book, the number one question I've gotten in the last 5 years, or two really, are how do you be married to a dreamer, and how, can you put together some sort of coaching thing? And I'll work on the coaching thing, but it took us 8 years to learn how to talk together about dreams. So her book really, and it's not just for women. I mean, it's for men and women, but it looks at the idea of, in a lot of marriages, the first thing you have to do is just get visible. There's a lot of spouses who are invisible, where the wife comes home and goes, hey, I quit my job, and they tell you after the fact. Or, hey, I bought a new laptop, and they tell you after the fact. They don't even know how to talk together on decisions. And then when you get from there, like the next stage is you're visible, but there's only one type of feedback you can give. Like Jenny and I's marriage, I thought she could only give me encouraging feedback. If she criticized an idea, I felt attacked. And that really put her in an unfair position. And so the book really walks through step by step. How do you get to the point where your wife or your husband is a partner in what you're doing? Because I'm a big believer in that 1 + 1 = like 1,000,000 when it comes to spouses working together.
Very, very exciting. I'm keen to see how that's going to come together and be marketed. Obviously, you've got a huge community, around acuff.me, which is awesome. So that's obviously going to help drive a lot of it now too. But any sort of particular unique things you got planned for the launch and promotion?
Well, we joked here in the States. I don't know if they do it there. Like when we grew up, say we were in middle school, we would go to roller skating rinks, and they would have what they'd call couples skate. Yep. Which is like only the couples could skate then. And so Jenny wants to do a book launch event where we launch the book at a roller skating rink, and it's all 80s music, and it's called Couples Skate. So I think that'd be hilarious.
That is awesome.
And I grew up, by the way, loving INXS. That is probably my. Yeah, he cool. He was the consummate rock star.
He was.
Yeah, I mean, like the hair, the attitude, like his story is so tragic.
Yeah.
Such a tragic situation. But yeah, that was my jam growing up. Like the album Kick, and like it's just brilliant. I still, love their stuff. But so cool. Imagine us having a roller skating rink, and we're skating around to Never Tear Us Apart by INXS.
Oh, mate, they're actually having a big resurgence here in Australia at the moment, because there's a pretty heavily promoted and backed telly movie about INXS's story, and obviously mostly about Michael. I think it's about 2 or 3 weeks away. So I'll work out getting a copy for you and send it across.
Yeah, I would love that. I'm serious. They were my first cassette I ever bought.
Very cool, mate. Well, to me, the INXS, Rockstar INXS, the reality TV show, to me was probably one of the best reality TV shows of all time. I loved that series when they found the new lead singer in JD Fortune. I think he was the best replacement, because one of the sad things with INXS, and I don't know how this fits in. I'd be keen to hear your take on this. Is that they've tried to keep the legacy alive, which I think is fair enough. The other band members still love the music, are still passionate, and should still be able to play as the band, even though part of the team's unfortunately not with us. But they've had so many lead singers over these years trying to sort of figure out what they're going to do. And it kind of actually tarnished the brand a little bit here in Australia, I think, to a certain extent, unfortunately. I loved it when they had JD Fortune as their lead singer. I thought he was was going to say adequate or a good replacement for Michael. Obviously, you can't replace him, but he was probably the best they've had. And obviously, that's what I think relationships gone away now. What's your take on that, trying to keep a legacy alive, whether it's INXS or something else?
My take is that it's awesome but super dangerous when your company or brand is so tightly tied to one person. For me, I mean, my long-term plan is that I'll grow my personal brand, but I'll have an idea that you know it as. Yeah. And I'm not there yet. I don't have the idea yet. But I think that's the way you get to grow it and spread it out. I mean, for us, for instance, we have this Chick-fil-A is this big kind of fast food place in our country, and they have a very charismatic leader named Truett Cathy. He founded it, but he's not the brand. Nobody goes, I go to Chick-fil-A because I love Truett. They go because they love chicken. So I've watched them really successfully hand the reins from Truett to his son Dan, and it's been a good handoff. Where I think, take Wendy's, which, fast food, their brand was Dave. Hey, I'm Dave, I'm white-haired, come to Wendy's. And when he passed away, they kind of lost their way. And so I think whether you're a band or a business, I mean, look at Apple. Apple hasn't, Apple was Steve Jobs, and that comes with, great wins during those years. But how do you transition? I mean, it's almost impossible for the follow-up leader to have similar success. So, I mean, it's a problem, or it's a challenge I'm currently thinking about, because I feel like I've got some good personal branding things going, but at the end of the day, what if I want to have 3 other people with me do this same thing, and I don't want, that's the only way something's scalable. An individual human personal brand is not scalable. Yeah,
that's a lot. With a lot of the consulting I do, that's one of the big things I say to a lot of people very early on is work out not what your exit strategy is, but just have that in mind in terms of decisions you're making right now, because you want to have something that can be bigger than you. How can you have that passive income if people want to buy your time on stage or, in group consulting and things like that? What can you do that you can deliver that is bigger than you, that is separate from you, that can have more longevity than you? And that's a big decision I think a lot of people aren't conscious of too early that you think you need to be.
Yeah. Well, and you see that with restaurants. I mean, you see that where, there's one guy who's like, oh, it's Big Tony. And for the restaurant to work, he has to be in the restaurant. Yeah. And that's a problem. You want him to be able to step out for a month and nobody bats an eye because the food is so good.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And this is what I think a lot of people miss, and I think it's very, very important. So John, let me ask you one final question. This is the question that we ask every single guest. And the question is, what question haven't I asked you that I should have?
I don't know. I think you've asked a lot of them. I mean, I think my favorite question is, where can people buy everything you have? No, I'm just joking.
No, absolutely. That is the greatest answer, and I love that. Being a marketer myself, that is the question you need to. So obviously,
the only thing I'd say is I always love when people go, why should I buy your book? And I always say, maybe you shouldn't. That to me is, because then you go, here's the free chapter. Like, hey, maybe, it's not for everybody. I hate when authors go, my book is for all humans, or I can't stand when they go, it's not a book so much as a revolution. Oh, good grief. It's a manifesto. Everything's a manifesto. Yeah, we love the word manifesto. I'm disappointed it's in Australia too. I was kind of hoping that Americans had cornered the market on that nonsense. But that's the branding aspect. So no, I mean, my big thing is follow me on Twitter. Read there's millions of words online I've written for free. Like, have fun. Like, don't ever feel pressure from me. Like, you got to buy something. I'd much rather you enjoy what I do online and we get to connect and all that. I mean, that's fun. So I would ask you, who's the most famous person you've interviewed on the podcast? Have you had Arnold on?
Haven't had Arnold. We're reaching out to Arnold. Probably the most famous is, I guess, Tim Ferriss, really. He's kind of got that pretty big brand. So Tim's been on a little bit. Robert Greene, who sort of ties in with a lot of stuff you talk about. Robert's awesome. Yeah, he's really cool. We've caught up a few times when he's been in Melbourne.
How is he? Is he pretty legit?
He's awesome. Yeah, we've had dinner a few times. He's a really cool bloke. Really, really cool. Definitely.
Oh, yeah, because I've read a bunch of his stuff. Like, fascinating. Like the what is it? The Rules of War.
Yeah. The thing that freaks me out is the amount of research he does for his books. It's just insane.
It embarrasses everybody else is writing books that are just really long blogs, and he legitimately writes books. Have you had Gary Vee on?
No, we've tried to sort of schedule up a few times. We've had email back and forth and trying to just get the schedules right. So hopefully, because I think his latest book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, is definitely worth something to talk about, particularly for our audience and our community. So
it's so practical. It's a text.
Yeah,
I mean, it's very much it's a textbook. But yeah, Tim Ferriss, I mean, those guys like Ferriss, guys like Robert Greene, like they're on a different planet as far as the stuff I'm trying to do. Like I'm just, if anything, I'm doing my best Tim Ferriss impression right now.
I think that's what most people are trying to do. Everyone's trying to imitate him because he's doing such a great job.
Oh, he's so smart at it. I mean, just absolutely brilliant.
Awesome.
So yeah, hopefully Gary Vee will come on the show.
Cool,
Michael Hyatt would be a good one to have. He's super good at all that stuff. So
awesome, man. Well, I think we should start wrapping it up. And as I've said, probably about in 4 or 5 different episodes of our show over the past 12 months, literally audible.com. Check out Start, the audio version. Like, I haven't read the physical book, haven't read the Kindle book. I just found the audio so engaging. I couldn't stop it. It was fantastic. So, mate, great work on the book, but also on the narration. Was that hard to actually? Obviously, being a public speaker, it's probably easy, but to actually read your own words out articulately, did you find that interesting? Or
yeah, I would say it's hard. I mean, I would say that it's a craft that I'm not good at yet.
I reckon it was one of the best narrated books I've heard, and I listened to a lot.
I think a lot of it has to do with the person you work with. I had a guy named Joe Lesh who is in Nashville. The benefit of Nashville is there's so many brilliant sound people here.
Yeah.
And so Joe is just such a natural. He makes it feel easy, makes you feel comfortable. And so the way he works, a lot of people will say, just, read it. We'll go back. We'll record stuff. We'll edit. He does one take. It's one take. So when you say I'm reading and I make a mistake, I just have to start at the line before and do it again.
Yeah.
So it's a really fascinating process. But yeah, I think I'm getting better at it. But in this particular case, I'd definitely say the sound guy was gigantic to me.
Awesome, man. Well,
and the only reason I know that is the first time I did Quitter, I had to record it a second time because I did so poorly because I tried to do it like on my own without an expert. And so I learned quickly I need an expert.
You need a team. Definitely need a team.
Exactly.
Awesome, Jon. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
And again, I wish I had an Australian accent. That would be helping out a lot right now.
So I think with that, Pete, it was really probably a good job that I wasn't on the call because I probably would have gushed all over the guy. I listened to that avidly and I've scribbled piles and piles and piles of notes because he just had so much to say on so many different topics. He's really just quite a well-rounded guy, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. He's a really cool guy, and we chatted quite a bit before and after the show as well. So we'll definitely keep him in the Preneur community world on some level. So yeah, he's a fantastic guy, and he's got a great blog. It's very entertaining, very it's a good mix of wisdom and comedy, I think, is a nice way of putting it.
Folks, before the interview, Pete commented you can get this book on Audible from our sponsor, if you haven't got an Audible account, you can get a free trial by going to audibletrial.com/PreneurCast. I'm saying this again, not because it's our sponsor, but because, as Pete has said time and time again, this book is fabulously entertaining in audio form. So strongly recommend you try it out on Audible and just get some of that wisdom that Jon had in this interview, kind of expounded and more detail of it. But it really was just great, Pete. I think you did a great job as an interviewer, but he's such a fascinating guy as well.
I appreciate that, but yeah, couldn't agree more.
Okay, folks, as usual, just want to talk to you about our competition. Now, this week, even though Jon was on the show, we're continuing our competition to win copies of Spin Selling, which was my book of the year, Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. So if you want to enter this competition, go to PreneurMarketing.com, to the PreneurCast section of PreneurMarketing.com, and look for the awards show and leave us a comment on there. You'll see that people have already done that. Quite a lot of people have already done that. Leave us a comment about your awards for 2013 or what you think about our awards for 2013. Let us know if you think we missed something. And we will, at the end of this month, choose someone by random, or 3 people by random even, to send a copy of Spin Selling to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even if you don't want to enter the competition, folks, we love your feedback. At the start of the show, Pete asked you to kind of join in the content drive for Preneur Marketing by letting us know what you've been doing in your marketing. Any comments you've got at all, do let us know. You can get hold of us by going to PreneurMarketing.com. and leave a comment below each blog post for each episode. There's also a little audio feedback button on the site. You can leave an audio message, which we may feature on the show. We haven't done one of those for a while, Pete, actually, so somebody please leave us a cool message and we'll feature you on the show in this slot. Feel free to mention your business if you want. We could even call it shameless plug, Pete.
Nice.
We could have people doing a shameless plug for their business. You can also leave us comments on iTunes and SoundCloud and all the other platforms that we're publishing on now. So just let us know how we're doing, folks.
Absolutely. And just really quickly, I want to sort of talk about next week's show because it ties perfectly with our contest, funnily enough, which ends at the end of this month. So next week's show will be the last show of February 2014, and we're going to be doing an episode on spin selling and how it applies to the 7 levers of business. We're going to be getting granular again and back to our framework that we speak about so much, the 7 levers of business, and it ties in with spin selling because that's the contest that ends at the end of next week. So it's a beautiful bow at the end of the month.
You love to do that, don't you?
I do.
Tie everything up with a nice, neat bow. So just to close the show, folks, just to remind you, Pete very kindly has offered to continue those consulting call slots. Pete, do you want to just let everybody know how they can get a slot with you if they want?
Absolutely. So Flo, our wonderful support person here in the Preneur Group, is available on support@preneurmarketing.com. Reach out to her and then she will get in touch with you with all the details about how to book one of these sessions with me. They're about an hour long, quite often go over a little bit. We delve into your business, look at each of those 7 levers for your business, working out where you're at, what is the lowest hanging fruit, what is the easiestly implemented big wins that you can work on over the next 2 weeks for that lever. Then we work on the next lever and you have a 14-week plan. A 14-week plan you can go off and work through your business and increase each of those levers by that 10% goal, which at the end of the day will double the profit of your business. It's a fantastic profile, framework, direction, mind map, blueprint, whatever term you want to use, that a lot of people have got some huge value out of already, which is so exciting to see.
They definitely have. We had some fantastic feedback, and as you say, this week you even had somebody sign up for a 2-hour session. that they found, they found so much value in what you had to say. They just had to keep going. So that's awesome, folks. Thanks for joining us this week. Do join us next week for that spin selling wrap up. Do leave us a comment wherever you can. Give us some feedback, and we'll see you all next week.
Sounds good. Cheers, guys.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Tom Gosher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at www.preneurmarketing.com or drop them a line via PreneurCast@preneurgroup.com.